Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture of literature. I'm Andrew Fort, and we're here for a poetry discussion that will take place in 3 separate playlists here on the channel. Number one, obviously, being the poetry discussion playlist, which will be hitting 100 poetry discussions at some point in the not-too-distant future. Number two, being the National Poetry Month 2021 playlist, in which there will be 30 poetry discussions, because I am doing 30 poetry discussions in 30 days during the month of April here in 2021 to celebrate National Poetry Month. But number three, I'm going to have a playlist for all of Robert Frost's poems in New Hampshire. So make sure you check that out as well. Robert Frost is a poet whom I am learning to love, I think. I'm becoming a lot more fond of him than I was during the days where I had to read him. The poem in question today is titled Maple. And it is a doozy. So, yes, I'm going to fumble my words. Yes, I'm going to screw up. Bear with me. Maple. Her teacher's certainty it must be Mabel made Maple first take notice of her name. She asked her father, and he told her Maple. Maple is right. But teacher told the school there's no such name. Teachers don't know as much as fathers about children. You tell teacher. You tell her that it's Maple. You ask her if she knows a maple tree. Well, you were named after a maple tree. Your mother named you. You and she just saw each other in passing in the room upstairs, one coming into this life and one going the other out of life, you know? So you can't have much recollection of her. She had been having a long look at you. She put her finger on your cheek so hard it must have made your dimple there, and said, Maple. I said it too. Yes, for her name. She nodded. So we're sure there's no mistake. I don't know what she wanted it to mean, but it seems like some word she left to bid you be a good girl. Be like a maple tree. How like a maple tree's for us to guess, or for a little girl to guess sometime. Not now. At least I shouldn't try too hard now. By and by I will tell you all I know about the different trees, and something, too, about your mother that perhaps may help. Dangerous, self-arousing words to sow. Luckily, all she wanted of her name then was to rebuke her teacher with it the next day, and give the teacher a scare as from her father. Anything further had been wasted on her, or so he tried to think to avoid blame. She would forget it. She all but forgot it. What he sowed with her slept so long asleep, and came so near death in the dark of years, that when it woke and came to life again, the flower was different from the parent seed. It came back vaguely at the glass one day, as she stood saying her name over aloud, striking it gently across her lowered eyes, to make it go well with the way she looked. What was it about her name? Its strangeness lay in having too much meaning. Other names, as Leslie, Carol, Irma, Marjorie, signified nothing. Rose could have been a meaning, but hadn't as it went. She knew a rose. This difference from other names, it was, made people notice it and notice her. They either noticed it or got it wrong. Her problem was to find out what it asked in dress or manner of the girl who bore it. If she could form some notion of her mother, what she had thought was lovely and what good. This was her mother's childhood home, the house 1 story high in front of 3 stories. On the end it presented to the road. The arrangement made the pleasant sunny cellar. Her mother's bedroom was her father's still, where she could watch her mother's picture fading. Once she found for a bookmark in the Bible a maple leaf she thought must have been laid in wait for her there. She read every word of the 2 pages it was pressed between. as if it was her mother speaking to her, but forgot to put the leaf back in, closing, and lost the place, never to read again. She was sure, though, there had been nothing in it. So she looked for herself as everyone looks for himself, more or less outwardly. And her self-seeking, fitful though it was, may still have been what led her on to read and think a little and get some city schooling. She learned shorthand, whatever shorthand may have had to do with it, and she sometimes wondered, so, till she found herself in a strange place, for the same maple to have brought her to, taking dictation on a paper pad, and in the pauses, when she raised her eyes, watching out of a 19th-story window, an airship laboring with unship-like motion, and a vague, all-disturbing roar above the river, beyond the highest city built with hands. Someone was saying in such natural tones, she almost wrote the words down on her knee. Do you know, you remind me of a tree? A maple tree? Because my name is Maple? Isn't it Mabel? I thought it was Mabel. No doubt you've heard the office call me Mabel. I have to let them call me what they like. They were both stirred that he should have divined without her name her personal mystery. It made it seem as if there must be something. She must have missed herself. So they were married, and they took the fancy home with them to live by. They went on pilgrimage once to her father's, the house 1 story high in front of 3 stories, on the side it presented to the road, to see if there was not some special tree she might have overlooked. They could find none, not so much as a single tree for shade, let alone grove of trees or sugar orchard. She told him of the bookmark in the maple leaf. In the Bible, all she remembered of the place marked with it. Wave offering. Something about wave offering, it said. You've never asked your father outright, have you? I have, and been put off some time, I think. This was her faded memory of the way once long ago her father had put himself off. Because no telling, but it may have been something between your father and your mother, not meant for us at all, not meant for me. Where would the fairness be in giving me a name to carry for life and never to know the secret of? And then it may have been something a father couldn't tell a daughter as well as a mother, as well could a mother. And again, it may have been their one lapse into fancy. 'Twould be too bad to make him sorry for bringing it up to him when he was too old. Your father feels us round him with our questing, and holds us off unnecessarily, as if he didn't know what little thing might lead us on to a discovery. It was personal. It was as personal as he could be about the way he saw it with you. To say your mother, had she lived, would be as far again from us, from being born to bearing. Just one look more with what you say in mind, and I give up. Which last look came to nothing, but though they now gave up search forever, they clung to what one had seen in the other by inspiration. It proved there was something. They kept their thoughts away from when the maples stood uniform in buckets, and the steam of sap and snow rolled off the sugar house. When they made her related to the maples, it was the tree the autumn fire ran through and swept of leathern leaves, but left the bark unscorched, unblackened even by any smoke. They always took their holidays in autumn. Once they came on a maple in a glade, standing alone with smooth arms lifted up, and every leaf of foliage she'd worn laid scarlet, pale, pink about her feet. But its age kept them from considering this one. 25 years ago at Maple's naming, it hardly could have been a two-leaved seedling. That next cow might have looked up out at pasture. Could it have been another maple like it? They hovered for a moment near discovery, figurative enough to see the symbol, but lacking faith in anything to mean the same at different times to different people. Perhaps a filial diffidence partly kept them from thinking it could be a thing so bridal. And anyway, it came too late for Maple. She used her hands to cover up her eyes. We would not see the secret if we could now. We are not looking for it anymore. Thus, had a name with meaning given in death, made a girl's marriage and ruled in her life. No matter that the meaning was not clear, a name with meaning could bring up a child, taking the child out of the parent's hands. Better a meaningless name, I should say, as leaving more to nature and happy chance. Name children some names and see what you do. So this is a rough poem, right? Maple's mother named her while dying in birth, and Maple sought her whole life for meaning in that name. She thought once that she was being communicated with from beyond the grave by her mother placing a maple leaf in a Bible. And on that page was a quote about something with offering. Now, I have Googled up what is this? Our Father's House Soup Kitchen. The 4 types of giving according to the Bible. The seed or offering. As mentioned, offerings differ from tithes. Unlike tithing, which is required an amount of how much you should give, offerings are more of a free will. It's up to you how much seed you want to give. Although the more you give, the more you will receive. Think of it as the more seeds you sow, the more plants you can harvest. So where should you give your offerings or plant your seed? The Bible says that the source of your spiritual food should receive your offerings. What this says to me is Robert Frost is communicating that mother did not die perchance in childbirth. That mother named her daughter Maple in the fact that she was going to give her life so that Maple would live. What does this say? I am not sure. What does this communicate? I cannot tell. But it's so here. The seed or offerings we just read. One other type of giving in the Bible is to tithe. Tithes often get confused with offerings, but both are very different from each other. According to the Bible, tithes are 10% of your income, and it can't count as an offering. The money belongs only to God, and you should give it to Him regularly. Tithes are more of an act of recognition. So if tithes are an act of recognition, offerings seem to be, to me, I'm outside the church, maybe I'm getting this wrong, offerings seem to be an act of passion. Tithes are responsibility, offerings are passion. The first fruit is another kind. The first fruits are usually done once a year or for every new blessing that you receive. So the first fruits are done in an act not of recognition of God, but in recognition of some success. Alms giving. Where are we here? Unlike those 3 types of giving above, which you should give to God, alms are for humankind. Your compassion and sympathy will lead you to help the less fortunate and the needy. So alms are sort of like charity, from what I understand. And I could be getting this wrong again. Which leaves offerings, the seed, the only place for Maple to derive her name, because Maple is a representation of passion. Unfortunately for Maple, Maple let her name become her passion. Maple let her name lead her to mystery as opposed to answers. This is difficult. This is a difficult recognition. I think that what this is Frost explicating a false mission, a false calling. All Maple wanted to do was understand why it was her name, Maple, why Maple was her name, why her mother gave her that name, what it meant. But it doesn't really change anything. What if her mother had named her Burnt End? Does that mean that she was born to like barbecue? No, doesn't mean anything. Robert Frost often employs a cake of practicality iced with a bit of superstition. I think this is Robert Frost giving us the danger of a cake of frosting iced with practicality. Yeah, that is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like this sort of thing, hitting that like button really helps me out here on the channel. If you would like to see more, make sure you tune in tomorrow. Just tomorrow. I have new videos on the channel Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays under normal circumstances. Mondays being for poetry, but this month every day is for poetry, and every day sees a new upload. There's also a link to my personal channel to be found in the description below.